Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's talk about the movie Tron, the 1982 movie Tron, not Tron Legacy. I'm not going to do an analysis that includes like a breakdown of every single category within number score because I think that betrays a little bit the importance of Tron, why you should watch Tron, and the experience that you might get coming away from Tron. Not that Tron doesn't deserve that kind of careful treatment, but the context of when Tron came out, as well as when or how you'd be watching it today, I think matters in a way that the score may not accurately reflect some of the things that I want to say about the movie. So if you've never seen Tron from 1982, I do recommend it. I think it's a great movie worth watching for a whole bunch of reasons. I rewatched it recently, having not seen it for a long time, with my children. They were up in the middle of the night, and they really enjoyed it. They thought it was a really fun adventure movie. They liked the visuals, especially my son, and they enjoyed the overall conflict. The fact that my son is only 8 and was able to understand the conflict, it's not a movie that's isolated in the early 1980s that you can't understand outside of that context. So I want to get that out of the way. Likewise, the visuals, which use a very early form of CGI, don't feel out of place. They haven't aged poorly, even though we have much more advanced technology for rendering that kind of thing now, because of the context of how the story is presented. It's about a person going into a computer, so the inside of the computer has this weird CGI early 80s video game aesthetic that, you know, those early graphics really enhance that. Not only that, but some of the things that we would consider flaws with the special effects, such as the graininess of the film. There's a lot of film grain, there's a lot of static, a lot of noise from the way that those like the live actors and the CGI elements had to be blended, the way that the the glowing costumes had to be made and blended together for the film, created a lot of noise. But that noise actually, again, enhances it because it's like we're looking at an old computer game or computer monitor. The noise kind of goes with the electronic aesthetic that's there. So the aesthetic is the main reason why I think you should watch Tron, as well as its historic reasons, like when it came out and what technology it was using at the time. It really is a technological feat for 1982 when it was released, and is worth watching just for that reason. But again, because of the the way the story is set up, the visuals actually hold up really well. They hold up much better than I figured they would. There's also this encapsulation within the movie of the early 1980s in terms of ideas and aesthetics and feel. What I mean by ideas is ideas about computers, where computers were going, where technology was going. Concern about AI is not recent. The main conflict in Tron is a renegade program that gains sapience and begins to send its tentacles all over the world into various places where it's not supposed to go in an attempt to gain total control over the earth, because it feels it can do things better than human beings and is enabled by a human that quickly has gotten all of these benefits from using this AI, but is suddenly its servant and no longer its master. So the elements of things that you might see in like cyberpunk from the later 80s and the 1990s are present in Tron, and fully present. These are ideas that actually had been present in sci-fi literature going, way back before that. But in the 80s, it was, again, another concern because computers were growing in their presence, in their use. So this idea that a program could be complex enough to gain a sapience and become a danger to humans was a really popular sci-fi theme, and we have a great one in Tron. The aesthetics of the 80s are there, not just the special effects, but the way things looked, the way people dressed. The way the office is built. Dillinger has this very, very clean office. Like the clean aesthetic was very big in the 1980s, and there's this great contrast between the clean aesthetic of the boss's office and this giant cube farm of lowly programmers, and they even used a matte painting to make it look like the cubicles are just stretching off into infinite distance. And I think the overall use of space in the movie is great, whether you're looking at the office with this sort of infinite stretching of cubicles, or inside there's like a little laboratory place inside the office where all of the visuals are disrupted by pipes and these intersecting welded together metal beams. So it looks like things just go on forever. There's this sense of immense size to every single set that exists in Tron. Whether that set is made here in the real world, or it's made with like a matte painting and combined with real world furniture, or it is completely computer generated, you have a really good aesthetic mastery. So the director was Steven Leisberger, who was also the main writer. He did write it based on a story by Bonnie McBird. He does a really masterful job with the visuals, and I think that's really where he earns his paycheck, is in that aesthetic presentation of the movie. Now, having said that, that's why you watch it. Let's talk a little bit about the writing, because there's some great lessons that we can learn about the writing here, both shortcomings of the writing and also why some of those shortcomings can be forgivable. So the main problem with the writing in Tron is not that it's dated or that the concepts are dated. That was what I thought I might experience. It was like, it's from 1982. They're going to have ideas about computer programs that are from 1982. No, in fact, they still feel fairly contemporary. They don't feel too outdated, although, you know, there's going to be some things that feel like a little out of date. But overall, the themes are, you know, still something that we would understand today. And my 8-year-old really had no problems understanding the themes of the movie at all. If you watched something like Wreck-It Ralph is just Tron. It's just the plot from Tron with some trimmings and put more firmly into like video game characters rather than, you know, sapient computer programs. Anyway, the main conflict is a really good conflict. However, the movie suffers from loading up too many conflicts at the beginning of the movie. And it's a great example of how conventional writing advice doesn't apply to every single work, doesn't apply to every movie, or doesn't apply to every book that you might be writing. Because Tron has such a complex setup for its world, and because there's so much to, I guess, do exposition for in regards to like the computer world and the company and the master control program, you really need to trim some of the conflict and therefore some of the plot. There's at least 3 conflicts that occur at the beginning of the movie, and by the time you get to the 3rd act, you just don't really have time to wrap all of them up in a normal runtime for the movie. And in fact, a lot of those just kind of get brushed off or ignored as we get to the final act. So the main conflict is this master control program is going to take over the world. So that's our A story. Our B story is a love triangle between the 3 main characters, Alan, and then Kevin, and then Alan's girlfriend, Kevin's ex-girlfriend, Laura. Now, it's set up as a love triangle. They do a good job exposing that conflict and setting it up. Because it happened in the past, they don't have to spend a lot of time with any of the characters getting to know each other. 2 of them are in a relationship. One of them used to be in a relationship with the other one, and obviously still thinks about her or pines for her. But we don't really have a lot of time to explore that deeply. And in fact, when we jump into the computer world, only one character goes. That's Kevin. So, you know, Laura and Alan are left behind in the real world trying to help resolve that main conflict. And instead, what we get are computer programs that take on the appearance of their programmers. So a program that looks like Laura, and then a program that looks like Alan. So the love triangle kind of continues there, but there's really no development, nor is there room for it. Because for us to have a satisfying plot where they're having an adventure through the computer world, we just don't really have time for jealousy between all these different characters. And in fact, the computerized version of Laura, we just do not have any time to really meet her. We meet her, and then Kevin kisses her, and then he jumps into master control, and that kind of like resolves the plot at the end of the movie. And then we have a time skip to where Kevin has, you know, is doing great all of a sudden, and then we just forget about the love triangle. So that was a complete misstep. We just probably, I mean, it's one of these things like, oh, the characters need to have some tension between them. They could have just had like Kevin be jealous of Alan's success, and then they become friends through their cooperation, which would have been a much better like buddy resolve versus a love triangle, which we don't really have time to deal with, a romance. And then a third plot, which is this, the fact that Kevin has been ousted from the company, and the bad guy, Dillinger, has stolen he had worked on these video games, had stolen them, claimed them as his own, and been able to work his way up in the company as a result. So we have a Justice C plan. Now that one actually does get resolved. That's really motivation for the main protagonist, Kevin, to do the things he does, which resolve the main story. But that's the big problem, is that there's just a little bit too much conflict. Even the main story, how we're going to stop Master Control, isn't really clear, and just kind of everything just kind of falls haphazardly into place in the final act to resolve the conflict. Is it a problem? Yeah. Is it a criticism? It's a criticism. Is it forgivable? I think it's mostly forgivable because the strength of Tron lies in the ideas that are behind it, and the world that is presented to you, and the aesthetics that are used to present that world to you. The great cinematography, the great special effects, that's really what Tron is about. The story is necessary to frame that correctly. So I probably would have dropped the love triangle, and I think it's a good example. You didn't need an A, B, and a C story. You could have just had a B story, and it would have been better for it. You could have focused more on like what Kevin is doing. And there's a lot of little elements that kind of start and then are forgotten about during the course of the plot. Just a quick summary of the plot so you're not lost if you haven't seen Tron. You know, Kevin is running an arcade, and you see him being really good at video games. It's because he designed the video games. He wants revenge on this bad guy Dillinger, who made the Master Control program. He agrees to help Alan and Laura like break into the company and find the evidence that he actually wrote the programs. They're going to somehow break into the mainframe, you know, break into the main computer there and find some sort of data trail about these programs that he stole. What ends up happening is he gets digitized and put into the computer, and they have a little scene prior to that where they set that up. All this stuff is set up fairly well ahead of time, and you just have to do a little bit of suspension of disbelief when it comes to like, we're going to, you know, this laser is going to vaporize him like a transporter from Star Wars, and he's going to end up in the computer. Inside the computer, he meets programs, and all the programs in the computer are sapient, whereas the big fear outside the computer is that Master Control is sapient the way a person is sapient. So we have this little like simulacron, which if you've never seen the movie adaptation, is called The 13th Floor. I think the original was called Simulacron 3, where you have people who look like people from the real world, not aware that they're living in like a Gnostic illusion world. Matrix is basically Tron with fewer steps and with like, you know, a slightly different story, because you have Kevin as a user, this mythical user, and they're persecuting the programs who believe in the users. So there's this this whole Gnostic thing that's going on as they enter the computer world. Because he's a user, he can like manipulate the computerized world at will. Yeah, they just use that in the Matrix, right? But we don't have a lot of time to explore that. He's able to like construct a ship and fly the ship and do a couple of other things that save the day and in some critical moments. But, you know, we don't really have a big exploration of how that works or like what he's really going to do with it. He just sort of, it becomes kind of a Deus Ex Machina at the end of the plot for him to stop Master Control by like jumping into it. You know, it all works and it's set up well, and we believe it because of the setup of like the user and the religious belief in the user and all that kind of stuff. If you're wondering where Matrix got a lot of its ideas, the answer is Tron, another reason to watch Tron. So yeah, there's this whole Gnostic theme that's going on about the simulation that is the computer world. We have to explore all that. That's what's really interesting about Tron more than the conflict, which really just sort of gets you to that place. And in fact, the conflict feels like out of place and annoying at times when they're trying to work that forward. There's a part where Kevin kisses the Laura of the computer world, and it just doesn't really, it's just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I don't really know why that's happening. He knows it's not her. I don't know why he does it. Maybe to like have one last kiss to this woman he's pining for, and then he jumps away. But like, what does that mean for the people that are there? Because Tron, who is Alan's creation, and Laura's program are an item somehow in the computer world. So it kind of messes up the relationship dynamics of the computerized world too. It's very interesting and kind of weird. So, that's why I think a lot of the story problems end up being forgivable, is because we really care about the portal fantasy of being transported into another world. In this case, it's a computer world, and where we can explore some of those funny religious themes. Master Control, of course, is trying to repress the religious beliefs of the people who believe in these mythical users, which you can neither see nor touch. It's like, but we receive messages from them. No, now that I've shut off all of the terminals, you can't receive any messages from users. It's like they don't exist. There's also some subtle things in the setup that I think are easy to miss. The fact that time occurs on a different scale inside the computer, because the computer is so much faster than human beings. As they travel through a computer, they're going like at the speed of light. It's kind of interesting how it all comes together. So anyway, because it's so good in those senses, you kind of forgive the problems with the setup with the writing. None of the execution of the writing is necessarily bad. It's just that the amount of conflict and the amount of ideas that are in the movie, it almost needed to be like an hour longer than it actually is to fit all of those in and to give you proper resolution for all of them. After you stop Master Control, of course, like Dillinger ends up gone. You have a time skip. Kevin's back at the company, and he's now like the head of the company somehow. He's like flies in on a helicopter. And Alan and Laura are fine with each other, and everybody's friends. And yeah, that's a great little way to tie it up. It's just like, okay, we don't really have time to deal with this love triangle, so we'll just show everybody being happy at the end, and we'll know that it has been dealt with. So anyway, that's Tron, the original 1982 movie. Why I think people should watch it, what I think is great about it, some problems that I think exist with it, and just some interesting tidbits about its relationship with media that followed, and I think its influence on a lot of science fiction that followed. I think it's a much more influential movie than people realize until they go back and watch it and like, wait a minute, this is just like The Matrix, or like, wait a minute, Wreck-It Ralph is just this plot with comedy. It's and without bothering with people having to be transported into the computer. It's actually a very influential movie and very highly copied in a lot of senses too. So anyway, I think it's worth watching. I think it has a great score too. A lot of mixture of different kinds of media in the score. I wouldn't say it's a super memorable score, but it's one of those things that really encapsulates the time and fits well with it. Kind of like how if you listen to something like, an album from 1982, you're going to hear certain sounds that are associated with the 80s, like certain Yamaha synthesizers and things like that. To me, the visuals of the movie are what I associate with the 80s. It just really nails them and is a great time capsule of the approaches to visuals that were like really hip and cool in the 1980s. 1982 was also the year Yes came out. Yes got back together and came up with an album called 90125 that the cover was made on an Apple computer, because computers were so cool at the time. If you go look at that cover, it's like, this is one of the worst rock covers I've seen in a way, but it makes total sense for the time. It just like resonates with the year 1982. So take it easy, guys. I will see you all next time. Have a great, great day, and let me know what you think about Tron, the original Tron, and I will talk to you all next time. Oh, Patreon is back up. Patreon.com/DavidVStewart. You get free books at different tiers, including physical books, if you sign up for one of the higher tiers that's on there. We'll be building that over the next couple months, building up a good patronage network, including doing some things like master classes, which people have asked for evaluating writing, one-on-one writing coaching and things like that. All that stuff is going to be up on the Patreon, and of course, an easy way to buy or access my music or my books. And there's the music channel, youtube.com/@Zul, Z-U-L online, and there's no talkie-talkie on that, just music, mostly my instrumental stuff, ambient rock and that kind of thing. So take it easy, and I will see you all next time.